calling you to gather together to have a celebration. We have much to celebrate in the new year. When we think about, I'm in CD2, so I can tell you nothing made me happier than watching the news today and watching Angie Craig get sworn in as many of you share that you've got great reps now. Not only did we take over the U.S. House, but we took over this fabulous house as well. Amazing reps that are going to work on issues that are in all of our best interests. We're going to focus on a few of those today. So I'm a firm believer that you can do two things at one time. You can celebrate and still show your outrage. Because we still have lots of issues we need to be fighting and speaking up about. And the last thing we want them to think is that we're going to get complacent. Because are we going to get complacent? No! Do we have issues we're going to fight for? Yes! So, Amy had this brilliant idea. I'm Karen, by the way. This is Amy. This is Katie. We are your warm-up act. Before the real speakers come.
But we should try to get everybody scooched in.
Yeah, can everybody scoot in together? And Sarah, can you come over this way? So you're going to be filming this way. Okay, so what Amy did was she made posters for all of our CD reps. Whether we think they're very progressive yet or not, we are going to encourage them, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. So, we've got some signs, some limited number of signs. HR1, get it done. So that's the chant. Are most of you guys familiar with HR1?
Yes.
On the signs you see, there's three main things it's going to fight for. Protecting voting rights. Ending corruption. And getting big money out of politics. It's amazing how all three of those things are so closely tied together. Okay, so what we want to do is be able to film a little message to each of these reps that we're hoping people will then tweet out, put out on social media, so that they really get a message that we're not going anywhere and they're going to be hearing us. So,
Okay.
all right, so ready? All right, so we're just going to practice first. Hagedorn, HR1, get it done, you work for us. Everybody got
Say
that?
that to the mic.
Silly. So it'll be Hagedorn, HR1, get it done, you work for us. And it'll be the same for all of them, okay? All right, ready? Hagedorn, HR1, get it done, you work for us. All right, next one. Craig, everybody ready?
I know, right?
Craig, HR1, get it done. You work for us.
Karen, did you want these individual or?
Yeah, but if you can't, I'll cut them over. Okay, Phillips. Okay. Phillips, HR1, get it done. You work for us. Okay, we're in McCollum, HR1, get it done. You work for us.
Ilhan. Omar,
HR1, get it done. You work for us. Ever, HR1, get it done. You work for us. Okay, Stauber, HR1, get it done. You work for us. Peterson, HR1, get it done. You work for us. All right. are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When democracy is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When we the people are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When migrant families are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When our core values are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When the rule of law is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When our collective voices are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When facts and truth are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Okay, repeat after me. Border security
Border security
does not equal a wall.
does not equal a wall.
Let migrants find asylum.
Let the migrants find asylum.
Don't let our government stall.
Don't let our government stall.
Border security
Border security
does not equal a wall.
does not equal a wall.
Let migrants find asylum.
Let migrants find asylum.
Don't let our government stall.
Don't let our government stall.
Federal workers need to be paid.
Federal workers need to be paid.
Forget the wall.
Forget the wall.
Paychecks shouldn't be delayed.
Paychecks shouldn't be delayed.
Federal workers
Federal workers
need to be paid.
need to be paid.
Forget the wall.
Forget the wall.
Paychecks shouldn't be delayed.
Paychecks shouldn't be delayed.
What do we want? Ethics in government. When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want? Checks and balances. When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want? Accountability. When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want? Rule of law. When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want? Voter security. When do we want it?
Now.
Okay.
Now do it.
Good. We're getting warmed up now, right? Okay, so we have a song.
This little line.
Does everybody know this little light of mine?
Yes.
And now you're all going to be very fortunate because I'm handing over the mic to Katie, who can actually sing.
Before I got this cold, I couldn't. I hear you. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
New verses. This country of ours, we're gonna make it fair.
This country of ours, we're gonna make it fair. This country of ours, we're gonna make it fair.
HR 1, pass it now, pass it now. Expanding voter rights, we're gonna make it fair.
Expanding voter rights, we're gonna make it fair. Expanding voter rights, we're gonna make it fair.
HR 1, pass it now, pass it now.
We the people know corruption's gotta go. We the people know corruption's gotta go. We the people know corruption's gotta go. HR 1, pass it now, pass it now.
All right, repeat after me, our elected officials.
Our elected officials.
Work for us.
Work for us.
Not the big money donors.
Not the big money donors.
Not the corporation.
Not the corporation.
Not the PACs.
Not the backs. It's just gonna make a noise.
All right. Here we go. Do you want to just? Do you want to do?
Sorry. Anytime.
Does anybody want an indivisible sign?
I want to introduce Homie Adokrido. He's going to open with some remarks for us.
Welcome everyone.
Everybody come on in. A little closer.
Everybody come on in.
Like it's your girlfriend.
My name is Homie Adokrido. I'm happy to be here today in the cold. Even though it's cold, you came out because you are the brave. Because today is very important for all of us. I am a part of Indivisible Group, Golden Valley Crystal, and Indivisible Group, Minnesota. I'm very happy to see you here today because today is exceptional. Because today is about democracy. Because today is about justice. Because today is about freedom. And because we are one, indivisible. Tonight, we gather because the earth is indivisible. You cannot separate her increasing pain by country or by border. We gather because Angela Davis said, justice is indivisible. You cannot just decide who gets civil rights and who cannot. We gather because Mahatma Gandhi said, one man cannot do right in one area of life while occupied in doing wrong in another. Life is an indivisible whole. We gather because John F. Kennedy, standing near another controversial wall, the Berlin Wall, said, freedom is indivisible. And when one man is enslaved, all are not free. And because we reject mirage of wars and division that humanity builds out of raw fear. Lastly, we gather because despite this time of difficulty and pain, we fought our way back. Holding fast to the high ideal of common good, of one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Comey.
Thank you.
Just want to say welcome everybody and Happy New Year. And welcome to the first day of the new Congress in 2019. And we actually have hope on this first day of Congress. We have hope for ending corruption. We have hope for ending voter suppression. We have hope for getting money out of politics. And we have hope for funding our government and not a wall. So on behalf of the the Minnesota Indivisible Alliance, we want to thank you all for coming. Let me see a show of hands for who here is part of a grassroots citizen activist group. Anybody? Oh, everybody. If you're not, you should talk to one of these people. Just raise their hands. We want you. We want to thank our main organizing group, Indivisible Resistance, Egan Burnsville, for putting this together. Thank you, Mark, and the others in IREV. And we want to thank our other sponsors, Common Cause Minnesota, Minnesota Let People Vote Coalition, Indivisible Minnesota Legislative Action, Indivisible St. Paul, American Promise, Swing Blue, Indivisible Monaga Park Rapids, Indivisible St. Peter, Greater Mankato, and Protect Minnesota. There are 2 other rallies being held today for this HR 1. One is in Mankato and one is in Bloomington. It's a nationwide indivisible day of action. So we're here to welcome our newly elected representatives to the first day of their new job. Thank you all for working for us, for the people. And Mark Frasconi, I'm going to introduce, he's going to give us a few of the details on HR 1.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Mark Frasconi. I'm co-founder and co-chair of the Invisible Group in the South Metro and CD2, the Indivisible Resistance of Egan and Burnsville. And we formed 2 years ago. We came up here, I remember it was just about 2 years ago, we came up here with the Women's March. That's when the resistance movement kind of started. We were all, and you know, Indivisible was just a word, it was a document. You know, it was, we didn't know who we were. Now look at us. We're indivisibles from across the state right now on the porch of our great capital.
Across the country.
Now the thing that I wanted to also thank is that, we're all so grateful and glad that you guys take your time. And I was going to say, the standard political joke is that on this, cold Minnesota night, well, it's actually kind of nice out there. So good on you guys for figuring out this is a good night to get out and be activists. All right. I'm not doing this well. So, all right, let's do it this way. So why are we here? Why are we here talking about HR 1? I'm going to read a little bit, so I'm sorry. Because the election of Donald Trump and the first 2 years of his administration have brought into sharp focus the importance of preserving and protecting our democracy against Republican attempts to erode it. And without a functional democracy in which everyone is included and represented, and we can't fix healthcare, immigration, endless wars, racial justice, or climate change. Additionally, we saw in the midterm elections how hard certain forces were working to suppress the vote, specifically certain racial groups. Bill number 1 is normally reserved for the top legislative priority of the party in control of that chamber. In the last Congress, well, I'm going to give you guys a guess. What do you think Bill number 1 was for the last chamber?
Taxes.
Number 1, yeah.
Tax cuts for the rich.
They ran that thing through. That was their priority. Hand out to corporations and the wealthy. Well, by choosing to strengthen our democracy with HR 1, the Democrats are showing that we're ready to stand up and fight this fight. And by being here tonight, we're all showing that we're behind them to fight this fight. So what's actually in HR 1? Karen mentioned this earlier. There's 3 pillars to this. One is voter empowerment and access. Through measures such as automatic voter registration, same-day registration, restoring the Voter Rights Act, protecting against improper purging of voter rolls, requiring states to upgrade and secure their election systems, restoring voting rights to those with past criminal convictions, providing adequate early voting opportunities, and preventing partisan gerrymandering through independent redistricting commissions. HR helps ensure that everyone is included and represented in our democracy. The second pillar, money in politics, is one we all know about, right? A constitutional amendment is needed to overturn the chaos at Citizens United. And related decisions unleashed into our campaign finance system. HR 1 starts that process immediately. Additionally, it further stems the tide of big money into our politics through amplifying small donor donations through public financing, encouraging small donor donations through tax incentives, and eliminating dark money by requiring disclosures of all political spending, including online ads, cutting off cooperation between candidates and super PACs, and empowering the Federal Election Commission to truly enforce campaign finance law.
Yes.
Now the third pillar is under ethics and corruption. Trump and his cronies regularly engage in self-dealing corruption and conflicts of interest without a single rebuke from the Republican controller, the previously Republican-controlled Congress. H.R. 1 cracks down on this by making sure that ethics rules apply to all government officials, including Trump. As of this afternoon, a provision has been added to the bill requiring 10 years of tax returns from the president. So until this bill is in motion, they're negotiating it, we're pushing for as much of this as we can get. This means that demanding disclosure of and divestment from his financial interests that pose conflicts of interest, then for the rest of the executive branch, locking the revolving doors of lobbyists and government officials, prohibiting bribery, and demanding full disclosure of information revealing potential and actual conflicts of interest.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the question. Well, what's the answer? I'm going to ask you guys to listen to our speakers for the next little bit and maybe see if we can't figure out what those answers are. And then after that, maybe I'll give you a clue what we need to do for our course of action. Coming up next, I think
Dave
I'm going to introduce Ruth.
Dave.
Oh, Dave. I'm sorry, Dave's here. We'll ask the speakers to go ahead and just introduce themselves. Go ahead, Dave Pinto.
Hello, so I'm State Representative Dave Pinto of St. Paul. I have a bunch of constituents here, and I just want to say thank you so much to all of you. I think, like, at some point, I just raised you if you're my constituents, and you know that. Anyway, love it. Like, it's awesome. So State Representative Dave Pinto. So I'm just going to be starting my third term in the Minnesota House. I work outside the legislature as a prosecutor for Ramsey County, specializing in gender violence, domestic assault, and sexual exploitation, sex trafficking. And this coming session, I'm going to be chairing a new committee on early childhood. I'm helping kids and seeing just the different ways, the trajectories that our kids' lives can go on to make sure that they get off the very best start. So today is the day when, it is today, right, with the U.S. Congress? Yeah, that's the whole point. Thank you. This shows you how state focus is. So that's today. And it's so important we're gathering here and all around the country about that. But here in Minnesota, we're going to be starting our work at the Capitol here next Tuesday. That's our We have a new incoming DFL majority, and we are ready to get to work. We have an amazing class of first-term members. You're going to be hearing from one of them, Ruth Richardson, momentarily. So the thing is, our majority, our incoming DFL majority, it is so important to us to continue the work that you all have been doing, that really we all have been doing together. One of the themes that our incoming speaker designate, Melissa Hortman, has emphasized is the need to be partnering with Minnesotans in developing the policies that we're pushing. So we, over this past year and a half, had a program called the Minnesota Values Project. We've been going out to communities all throughout Minnesota, having conversations, listening sessions. And we developed a campaign plan based on that, policies to push. We'll be rolling out bills next week based on that, now called the Minnesota Values Plan. We will want you to be working with us as we continue to roll that out, because when I see these signs and think about this, what this boils down to is this idea that policy making needs to be a partnership, right? It needs to include everybody inside the Capitol, outside the Capitol, all around. We cannot do this work on our own inside, nor should we be doing that. Thank you so much for being here. It's so critical to be doing that. As I'm standing here, I guess I'm thinking about the freedoms that we have. And I think I made reference to this. We spoke a couple months ago. Just thinking that, right now, as you are standing here, people holding these signs, you're exercising your freedom of speech. You can write what you want to on the sign. You have the right to do that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You are exercising your freedom of assembly. You're out here with your friends and your colleagues and your neighbors and expressing your beliefs. You have the freedom to do that here in America. You are here on the steps of your Minnesota Capitol. You're petitioning your government, both now and you certainly will be in the coming weeks, for redress of your grievances, for saying, we want the laws to be a certain way, and you need to hear us out doing that. You're exercising that freedom as well, correct?
Yes.
And for those of you out here, you can look, this is the beautiful cathedral, right? Representing our freedom of religion, freedom of worship as we want, and there's so many more freedoms. There is this phrase that I think has sometimes been more common on the right, but I think we all need to be embracing. Freedom is not free, right? Freedom requires each one of us to step in and to participate. I think it's been especially clear the last couple of years that democracy is not a spectator sport, right? This is a participatory sport. It's a team sport. It requires each and every one of us. And I am so glad that you are here participating in that work. It is critical that we do that over and over and over again. So next Tuesday, please come and participate in our swearing in at noon. Observe, check it all out. But then at 1 p.m., there's going to be a rally to fight gun violence. You know what? I know later that afternoon there's more events. The next day, I say, please keep on coming back and engaging with us and participating with us. And as you do, keep in mind that as that sign that was up there over there says, whose house is this?
Our house.
Whose house?
Our house.
Whose house?
Our house.
Keep it in mind day after day after day that word "our" means all of us together, and let's keep it doing together. Thank you so much for your work. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce an amazing first-term member, Representative-elect, soon-to-be Representative Ruth Richardson.
Out on this cold night in search of your democracy. And,
Ruth, go real quick.
oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I don't project. I'm learning how. So when we think about how do we get to ethical government, how do we get to transparency and accountability, it's through all of you. It's about people, and it's about voting. And so I want to talk a little bit about voter suppression. Because if we don't do something about voter suppression, it will affect all of our democracy.
Yes.
So I grew up in a large family of storytellers, so I'm going to tell you a story about voter suppression. The very first time that I remember hearing about voter suppression, I was probably in elementary school. And my mom was telling me about the challenges that she and her family faced when it came to voting growing up in the Deep South in Mississippi. And she told me stories of the types of questions that black people would be asked when they would go to vote. Questions like, how many bubbles are in a bar of soap? Yeah. And regardless of what you say, it's not the right answer. And in addition to that, there was also a whole sort of terroristic fear that was going on related to voting as well. She told me stories about Freedom Summer. And if any of you remember Schweiner, Cheney, and Goodman, and what happened to them, she told us about how when they were in Meridian, because they lived in Meridian at the time of Freedom Summer, and she said, you know, every day they saw the three of them going door to door, trying to get people to get registered to vote, and talking to people about their democracy, talking about their freedom, talking about education, talking about setting up freedom schools for kids that were in the area. And we all know what happened in the case of those three civil rights workers. They lost their life in search of democracy. And so when you fast forward to what we're facing today and what we faced in this last election, it tells you just how important voting is. And there's a reason that they're suppressing the vote, because they know it matters. Because if votes didn't matter, they wouldn't be working so hard to take the vote away from individuals. And when you see people standing in lines for 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours trying to cast a vote, when you hear about voting machines that don't work, or voting machines that are not registering votes correctly, we know that we have a serious problem. And if we want to ensure that we are going to have democracy, the very first thing that we need to ensure is that our elections are fair, and we need to ensure that everyone gets their right to vote. And if we want to make sure that we can hold elected officials accountable, we do that through voting. And so we
need to make sure that we are ensuring that everyone has the right to vote. And I know here in Minnesota we have the highest voter turnout in the nation. But it's about a lot more than Minnesota.
Yes.
It's about what's going on all around the nation. And so I commend all of you for coming out in support of democracy today. And I hope to be able to work alongside all of you because as Representative Pinto was saying, in order to get to the crux of these issues, we need to ensure that people who are most impacted by these issues are at the table to be part of the decision.
Thank you.
Who's deciding who votes and who has the right to vote and who doesn't continues in the way that it has. Look at Georgia as an example. And talk about corruption. Having someone who's actually running for governor who's also in charge of elections.
It's not okay.
How's that ethical? So again, I'll just close with saying that with everything that we do, it's all about people. And it's about the power of people. And so I am so excited to be able to go on this journey with you to protect our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Dickinson. We have Melanie Haslip here with the Minnesota Let People Vote Coalition. She's going to say a few words about voting also. Hello, fellow protectors of our democracy. It's an honor to be here with you tonight. For over the last year, the Minnesota Let People Vote Coalition has worked hard for the tenants in H.R. 1 to protect and expand our voting rights. In our grassroots efforts, we've knocked on countless doors, organized education and registration voter events, big and small, and have fought hard to restore the vote to end felony disenfranchisement. Restore the Vote would give the right to vote back to over 50,000 Minnesotans who have served their incarceration time and are back out in our communities. These are citizens that go to work, they pay their taxes, they live among us, and they deserve to have their voice through their vote. When Restore the Vote to end felony disenfranchisement comes up in this legislative session, make sure you tell your representatives that you support the passage of this bill. We believe that the backbone of our democracy is access to the ballot. And we invite you to join us as we fight for this right. We support H.R. 1 because we want to see nationwide automatic voter registration and online voter registration. 17 states have automatic voter registration, and they've seen their registration rates dramatically increase. But we as a country can do better than 17 states.
Yes.
There are 38 states that have online voter registration, but we as a country can do better than 38 states.
Yes.
It's time to remove the barriers to voter registration and to modernize our voter registration systems. If you're here tonight, you probably already support H.R. 1 and agree that we need to make it easier as a country for our citizens to vote. So that's why I'm asking you to take this message on beyond just this crowd of dedicated protectors of our democracy. Spread the message by not only telling your representatives why they should support H.R. 1, but anyone who will listen. Tell your friends, your family, your neighbors why they should support H.R. 1. Have a conversation with people who you know are on the fence or even on the other side about why you support H.R. 1. Spread the message far and wide that we support H.R. 1 because we believe it lays the foundation that we need to protect our democracy. Thank you, Melanie. Now we have Mandy Schwimmer, who's here representing the group American Promise. She'll tell you a little bit about the group.
I'm not going to tell you a little bit about the group. No, I'm going to try. I'm going to try. Really close. How is this? Is this better?
Nice.
Okay. Hello. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Mandy Schwimmer. Thanks, Amy. And and I'm an activist and a stay-at-home mom here in St. Paul. So welcome to my hood. Nice to see you. I am here tonight with American Promise, filling in for Vicki Barnes. She is an amazing woman. I'm not going to make a whole speech about her, but I probably could. She has been working for 6 years on the journey towards overturning Citizens United. So I'm filling in for her. So if you'll let me, I'd like to tell you a little bit about who I am and why you should listen to me. So who am I? In some ways, I am just like you. But in other ways, not so much. I'm a friend and a neighbor, wife and a mother. I am drawn to things with 3 letters. So I'm on the PTA, but I'm also a total SJW. You know, ladies, do anyone? Yeah, thank you. In fact, I'm a feminist, and not the nice kind of feminist. I am the nasty woman that the president warned you about. I'm an atheist. I'm a socialist. I'm bisexual. I'm an abuse survivor. I am neurodivergent. If you don't know what that means, I'll talk to you about it for hours and hours. And that's funny if you do know what it means. But basically, why I'm here tonight and why you should listen to me is that I am an American. And my voice is one of many that deserves to have a say in my government, but isn't being heard currently. You know what I'm not? I don't know if you've noticed, not a corporation. Not a super PAC. No. But unfortunately, now I have to get serious. Several Supreme Court decisions, including Citizens United, have ruled that corporations and other artificial entities have the same First Amendment right to speak as natural persons, and that money is speech. It is unconstitutional to limit speech, so we are unable to regulate campaign spending. These rules have enabled the big moneyed special interest groups and global corporations to influence our elections and policies. And I call BS, to borrow from the kids. All of us here have come here tonight because we believe that the people of our country deserve better than this. We are here to show that the people have the power. And whether you have only recently become woke or have been wide awake for decades, all of us here understand that we can use this power not only for ourselves as individuals, but also to amplify the voices of those who are too often ignored. We are a self-governing nation. Our Constitution starts with we the people, and we the people will have the final say. There's a backside to my sheet, but I want to hear from you. Who has the power?
We the people!
Who has the power?
We the people!
Who has the power?
We the people!
Okay. 7 of the 27 amendments to our Constitution were passed to overturn bad Supreme Court decisions. The Supreme Court ruled that African Americans were not and never could be citizens of the United States, which prompted we the people to pass the 13th and 14th Amendments. So who has the power?
We the people!
Who has the power?
We the people!
One more time, until the next time. Who has the power?
We the people!
The Supreme Court denied women the vote, but we the people mobilized and passed the 19th Amendment. Because who has the power?
We the people!
You were right, I was wrong. Who has the power?
We the people!
Now, all right, back to what I'm supposed to be doing. American Promise, along with other organizations like Move to Amend and Minnesota Citizens for Clean Elections, is working in Minnesota and nationally to pass an amendment that will allow us to be able to regulate campaign spending again. So keep an eye on your social media, pay attention to any email lists you may be involved in, because American Promise will be notifying everyone when state and federal bills are dropped so that we can take action and reclaim our democracy. As we listen to the rest of the speakers tonight, we must remind ourselves that, as Loring Lessing says, getting money out of politics is not the only issue, but it is the first issue. The issue we have to solve before we get to fix all the rest. So one more time, who has the power?
We the people!
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Granny. I'm going to introduce Nancy Nordbentz, who is the Executive Director of Protect Minnesota. Thanks, Nancy.
Hi there. Hi. So I'm, as she said, Nancy Nordbentz. I'm the Executive Director of Protect Minnesota. We are the state-based independent gun violence prevention organization in Minnesota. And some people, yes, thank you. And some people might wonder, why is it that Protect Minnesota, a gun violence prevention group, is here talking about HR 1 and voter suppression? So I want you to say a number after me. I want you to say 90%.
90%.
Louder.
90%.
That's how many Minnesotans, as of April 2018, supported the passage of background check, a universal background check bill, and other stronger gun laws. Say that number again, 90%.
90%.
Now I want you to say another number, 1.5%.
1.5%.
Did not hear you.
1.5%.
You know what that is? That's how many Americans belong to the National Rifle Association. 1.5% of Americans. The National Rifle Association speaks for the tiny end of the tail of the dog of public safety in America. 8 out of every 10 hunters do not belong to the NRA. 95% of all gun owners do not belong to the NRA. The NRA represents how many Americans?
1.5%.
And yet that little teeny tip of the tail of the big long dog wags the whole of American public safety policy when it comes to guns. That 1.5% of Americans is the reason that our children and grandchildren have to practice being shot at in school. Think about that. We teach them to practice getting shot at because 1.5% of Americans believe that anybody should be able to carry any kind of gun anywhere in this country, even though nearing 100% of Americans, it's close to like 96%, believe in stronger gun laws. That's why I'm here tonight. Because it's because of that corruption, it's because of the money in government, it's because of Citizens United, please hiss and boo, Citizens United, it's because of voter suppression, rampant voter suppression, that the NRA, this tiny little single issue group that only represents 1.5%, which is actually what they really represent are the gun manufacturers. They have determined public safety policy in this country for decades. And so we are here tonight to support anything that is working to get the money out of government, either at the federal level or the state level, that is working to stop voter suppression all over this country, that is working to overturn Citizens United, that is working to make sure that the 90% are heard, and that the 90% have the power that the 1.5% have now. So we're here tonight for you. We hope that you'll be here for us on Tuesday. As Representative Pinto said, it's opening day rally for gun reform at 1 p.m. in the Rotunda. And afterwards, we're going to ask people if you've got the time to go and bring some postcards to your representatives. 2 big bills we're pushing this year, and I can tell you all about that on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, January 8th, next Tuesday. I hope you'll join us. If you want to know any more about that, you can text ORANGE, the word orange, to 474747. Another number, 474747. And you can help the 90% of Minnesotans get what we deserve when it comes to gun safety. Thank you so much.
Anastasia here. one more speaker, but I think she's not here. So we're going to turn it over to Mark. He's going to tell us a little bit about what we're going to do as we leave here. Whose house?
Our house.
Whose house?
Our house.
Whose house?
Our house.
So I'm going to try to pass for just a couple more minutes, and then maybe we'll call it a night if Anastasia doesn't show up.
That's fine.
or,
No, it's fine.
Okay. One thing, I just wanted to, again, thank everyone for showing up. You know, in the future, when they look back at our time and they try to figure out who it was that saved democracy, they're going to be looking at you guys. You guys are the ones that showed up. And we're going to keep working, and I'm so glad that everyone turned out. So what's the answer to the question that we had earlier? It's to never stop talking. That's what we got to do. We got to go out for the next 2 years. We can never stop talking about these 3 pillars, about fixing the corruption that is in Washington. That's why the resistance stood up. That's why we all came out 2 years ago, came down John Ireland Boulevard, and began a resistance movement because we saw the corruption that was coming, and we wanted it to end. So we got to keep talking about it. We got to keep banging the drum, keep stirring the pot. For the next 2 years, we won't let these guys know or let them forget that we are here. This is whose house?
Our house.
Whose house?
Our house.
All right, everybody go home and have a good night. Thank you.